How does it work?
It's an astrology thing. It's called a cycle.
Dude, it's awesome. You put in your birth time and location, and it tells you that the reason that your sitcom got canceled and your wife is the neighbor's while you're eating eggs to slim down so that somebody will is because the planet Saturn is trying to teach you how to process your emotions in a healthier way.
I'm glad you're finding it helpful.
It's awesome.
Daddy! Mommy! Awake me! And save me from the hell of living!
Happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real. My name is Miguel Connor and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis, your madman across the waters of creation. So good to see everybody on this Mars Day if you're catching us live, and good to connect with you regardless of the time and space, the illusion of time and space. I hope you're writing your own gospel and living your own myth, because if you don't, the demiurge will hire a ghostwriter to write your life, and it might be usually pretty average. And I hope you are thriving in this age of Hermes, these Gnostic times, and this Philip K. Dick world. And if you're wondering about the intros, I think it's appropriate considering the subject tonight, as the topic will be something very innovative and I think game-changing to astrology. The clip was from the film Blink Twice. And yes, it's when Silicon, New Age, meet astrology, it's never a good thing. And the latter clip was from Longlegs, starring Nicolas Cage. And he plays a sort of, serial killer glam rocker. Strange movie, but again, we are getting into the season of horror movies, and those are two pretty decent horror films. So very excited tonight. I am joined by Jamie Paul Lamb, who will be discussing his new book, The Astrological Goetia, the 72 Keys to Angelic and Demonic Astrology. Jamie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me on. This is a really cool show. And that intro was something else. I mean, I could watch an hour of that. That was super cool. Great job on that.
Thanks.
Miguel and Moondog, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you guys. And I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it too. Yes, and in the Blink Twice, the character complaining about Saturn reminds me of me because I've spent my whole summer complaining about Saturn. But that's the actor from the movie The Sixth Sense. You know, I See Dead People. He's grown up now, but it's the same actor.
I didn't recognize him. But, yeah.
He's all grown up now and using astrological apps, I guess. And yes, with us too, we got the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing?
Oh, we're fine. We're getting visits from Jupiter, otherwise known as Zeus, tonight here, with first thunderstorm in a long time. So I'm looking forward to this show because it's been a long time since I've really gotten to depth with astrology. So I'm hoping to brush up a little bit and learn some new stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, does your power ever go out with those rare thunderstorms?
Yes, it can. Well, I got a UPS, so I won't be out I can cover short power outages, but if I disappear, you'll know why.
Yeah, you got a lightning bolt one way or another, right?
If you see a bright flash on the screen before, well, it's been nice.
Yeah. He finally got you. He finally decided to take you off the game board. Too much trouble, us heretics. So
yeah, maybe Saturn will protect me.
Yeah. Get your app. Well, awesome, Jamie. Before we really delve into your book, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I guess my foundation is Freemasonry. So I've been a Mason for about 14 years or so. And everything in terms of Western esotericism, I've kind of approached from that vantage point. I wrote 3 Masonic books between 2018 and 2021, I think. And they've done pretty well in the Masonosphere, you know, so it's like you kind of got a captive audience there. but it is a smaller demographic. So now with this new book, the Astrological Goetia, the word Freemasonry doesn't even appear once in the book. So this is my first foray out into just general astrology, which has become a specialization of mine. So I was into just the Hermetic arts in general for years and years, like astrology, magic, alchemy. But I decided to, about 5 years ago, I decided to specialize in astrology because it seemed to be at the root of everything else that I was studying, And so now it's led me here to, I found something that I couldn't find elsewhere in the literature. And I wrote a book about that, and it's coming out on September 23rd.
Right around the corner, right at autumn. Yes, I like how when I went to your website, you get this very cool quote that I'll pull up here. You write, I believe that astrology and tarot are two means by which we may orient ourselves in such a way so as to be propelled by the momentum of the cosmos. Cool quote, huh? So this is what this is your thrust these days, your pivot.
Yeah. So I've been the last maybe 4 years or so, I've been doing consultation just during my free time, because I work 40 hours a week. I'm a lighting project management guy, commercial project management during the day, but I do tarot and astrological consultation by night, and sometimes on the weekends. So it's something I feel very, I'm just way into it still. I remember, it's really changed my worldview in a lot of ways. So that's cosmologically and otherwise. So it's just a deep interest of mine. And I've done a lot of, I studied with Chris Brennan, I've studied with Christopher Warnock, and I've worked with Mark Stavish, who's been on this show a number of times. I'm the instructor of astrology at his Institute for Hermetic Studies.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I'm all the way in with astrology,
Yeah, and Mr. Stavish wrote you a very nice forward too. So
He
kudos.
sure did. Yeah, he sure did. And inner traditions, they've been great. Yeah, about that demographic thing. Now it's widening to, the astrological scene, and that's much larger than your typical Masonic kind of, the Masonosphere, as I call it. But
I like it.
but it's so I'm looking forward to just how this is going to be received, and I think I found something that again hasn't been really worked over. So
Yeah, let's unpack that too, because as your book seems to it brings some innovative ideas, and it seems to be that bridge between angelic magicians and astrologers. And again, astrology could use a shot in the arm. But I guess the first question I wanted to ask you before we really break it down is the idea throughout your book, and that's of demons and angels, because as Vance and I were talking before the show, those are two words that mean a million things to people in astrology, Freemasons, magicians. To some, they're archetypes, to they're psychological processes. To others, they're closer to what their names are.
Sure.
Conscious entities that are manipulating our fates in this world. So, what do you tell people are angels and demons?
I kind of take the Platonic route on that. A demon or a daimon, platonically, is sort of there's different types. There's the personal daimon, who is, if you've read at the end of the Republic, there's a little sequence called the myth of and in the myth of the pre-incarnate human soul is outside of the cosmos. So that's outside of the sphere of the fixed stars in the zodiac, and the pre-incarnate human soul chooses a daimon, and that daimon acts as a psychopomp, bringing the soul down into the underworld, which for us is the sublunary sphere where we live, the sphere of the elements. So at each planetary sphere, between, once it punctures the Ogdoad, or the sphere of the fixed stars in the zodiac, the daimon guides the soul down through the 7 planetary spheres when it takes on astral garments, what Porphyry called astral garments. You can think of them as like kind of accretions of character, and that correspond to each of the planetary spheres. So the vices and the virtues corresponding to these spheres. It's a really established kind of tradition, goes into Catholicism as well. And so that's how I think of the personal daimon. Now, of course, there's the idea of like a temple genius, the daimon of a temple, let's say, or even the daimon of a fountain, like a naiad or something like that. But there's this daimonic kind of presence to things, like much like a genius, or the genius loci in the Roman kind of tradition. But and angels, I think of them, so cosmologically, this is important, I think. So the demons are below the sphere of the fixed stars in the zodiac. They're not, at least from my studies, right? They're not beyond, they're not in the noetic sphere, the intellectual sphere. You have stellar and planetary demons, and they begin at the Ogdoad and go down into the sublunary sphere, into the aerial and fiery spheres. Maybe not all the way down to Earth per se, but the fiery and airy kind of pieces. But and then angels, messengers, the word means messenger, angelos, and it is I think of them like John Dee or even Iamblichus would say as sort of mathematical entities, right? They're or Agrippa would talk about them as such. They're more like equations somehow. They're abstract, and they exist only outside of the Ogdoad, in the noetic sphere, right? So I'm not sure, yes, there is talk about being guided by the angels, but I think you have to sort of meet them somehow halfway, and I'm not sure if they ever descend from the noetic sphere, the intellectual sort of supra-celestial sphere. But I think the cosmology of the whole model really is important to grasp. I mean, even if for astrology in general, you have to be able to kind of picture the mechanism. And something I tell people a lot, just basic thing, because people are like, they think if you're into astrology, you have to have this antiquated worldview that is geocentric, right? And I talk about this a lot, that astrology is actually georeferential, in that, let's say you're out in space, you're looking down from celestial north at our solar system. Yes, the sun is in the middle, the planets are around it, the moon is around us, orbiting us. And all you have to do to astrologize and keep the model is take the pin out of the sun and put it in the earth, making it the stationary object, and then look at everything else moving the same. So it's really more of a like tychonic cosmology, Tycho Brahe, So that's one of the first things I tell like my students, because it's not asking you, astrology is not asking you to believe something that's wrong,
No, it makes sense. What do you think, Vance, or do you have a diamond in the rough?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask so the planetary influences, are those diamonds then in your system, in your way of thinking, like Jupiter and Saturn and their influences, are those diamonds?
They have sort of, how Agrippa talks about the spirits of the planets. So the spirit and the intelligences, he talks about the intelligences, the archangel of the planet, like Qamael for Mars, let's say, that's today, Tuesday. So he talks about the spirits, and this is an established thing, probably going back to Pseudo Dionysius. And the spirits are the daimons, the demons. So just like in regular Goetia, just conjuring daimons. They're referred to as spirits, and a spirit catalog that they say in the Solomonic tradition. There's a spirit catalog, and it went from, Solomonic meaning the Testament of Solomon around the, in antiquity, and then the Apocalypse of Adam, and then through the rabbinic literature and through the Perso-Arabic milieu, like with the Arabian Nights and the Quran even, and all the way through the early modern grimoire period there with angel magicians and Goetic practitioners, operators as they would probably be called, and that spirit catalog, this catalog of demons, has been kind of taking on it. It took all the way up to the early modern period before we see 72. So 72 is an important number in my book, because that deals with the amount of demons, the amount of the angels, like the angels of the Shem HaMephorash, and the 72 Quinaries. So this is an important mechanical piece of the work, is that there's in terms of like, astrological, like the mechanism that we see. So there are 72 5-degree arc segments of the ecliptic. So you have the zodiac, and each of the signs is broken out into 6 quinaries. So they're 5-degree arc segments of the ecliptic, and there are 72 of them, and they've been sort of collated with the daimonic significations, the spirits, and also with the angelic significations from the Shem HaMephorash, the 72, angels of the Shem HaMephorash that we get from like Kircher and Reuchlin, Kabbalistically sort of. So it's kind of a mashup between this Kabbalistic sort of grimoire tradition that you again get around Reuchlin and Kircher, and the sort of daimonic Solomonic transmission, basically. So yeah, suffice it to say that the whole system mechanistically revolves around these 5-degree arc segments, 72 5-degree arc segments.
So that means in the traditional astrological houses where there's 12 houses, they're broken up. Within those houses, there are these subdivisions within each house, or is the house system not used at all in the system?
It's not necessary to think in terms of signs or houses. That's something I tell students as well. Like when we're talking signs, we're talking about the zodiac. When we're talking houses, we're talking about the divisions of the heavens that relate to the human agenda, lived experience,
Right.
But anyway, so something I tell students is that signs and constellations are 2 different things. Because how this is funny, it just happened actually recently. Every few years they run this article in all the papers that says, did you know that your sign is probably wrong because of axial precession?
Right.
Yeah, so that's false. So if these people actually did a little bit of research, they would find immediately that signs have never been constellations. They're loosely named after them because at one point precessionally they did line up at 0 Aries, but take like Aries, for example, is a very small constellation, whereas Pisces is huge. It's like 45 degrees. So they've never been the constellations have never been truly important in that sense. We're talking about the signs, which are 30-degree segments of space-time. 30 degrees, and they're always 30 degrees, and there's always 12 of them.
The order is of course the constellations drove the order of the signs, right? The order, but not the size. You're saying, not the angular size.
Right. Exactly. So it's signs and constellations are 2 different things, and that's the one sentence that everybody who runs that article needs to know is that it's always been that way. That's the thing. Since Hellenistic astrology, signs are 30-degree. There's 12 30-degree arc segments of space-time, and those are the signs. And the signs have, they have significations themselves. They have, hot, cold, wet, dry. They have sort of active, passive polarity. They have an elemental correspondence, like an air sign, a water sign, the trigons. So that's how they color a planet. Here's another thing that I think is nuts and bolts astrology, but nobody knows this for some reason, is that the signs are not personalities. They're not types. To say I'm a Leo is actually kind of absurd. It doesn't work like that. You're not a Leo. You're all of your planets, and not just your sun sign. You're all of your planets as they are arrayed against the zodiac and the signs of the zodiac. So to call, like, I grew up calling myself a Capricorn because my sun was in Capricorn when I was born. And before I knew anything about astrology, I would say, yeah, I'm a Capricorn, or that's what my mom tells me. And but that's wrong. So it's like I could say my sun is in Capricorn, and that made sense. And thereby, each planet that's in a sign, and this leads into my Quinarian thing, each planet that's in a sign takes on the qualities of that sign. So let's say you have your Venus in Libra. Venus rules Libra, so that's nice. You get some essential dignity there. Venus is cold and moist. Libra is hot and moist. So there's some coloration there. There's some coloration there, and there's some qualitative influence that the signs provide to the planet.
We all got pooches. We all have pooches. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, come here. Hey,
he's doing his job. He's just doing his job.
Buatis, come here. Buatis is his name. Talk about constellations.
There you go.
Yeah.
Not in the zodiac, but he's close.
Get in your kennel. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Kennel now.
Yeah, kennel.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't hear me. You got your headphones on. You can't hear me. He needs his own headphones.
Yeah. So basically, that's another. So already we've covered three big things that, people generally don't look at. Signs are not constellations. Yeah. The astrology is not geocentric. It's georeferential. It views the Earth as the locus of human consciousness, which it is. It's our vantage point. And then we've covered the how signs are not characteristics. You're not a Leo. Nobody is a Leo. That's just an absurd way to think about it, because here's the best way to get all that in order. There's a thing called the theater analogy. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
The theater analogy is actually a pretty old way to describe astrological theory, and it goes like this. Signs or rather planets in signs and in houses are in aspect to each other. So planets are in signs and houses, and they have aspects. These are the four primary elements of astrology. Now, in the theater, actors are in wardrobe on sets, and they have dialogue. And that's a one-for-one comparison. Actors are the planets. They're in wardrobe, which is the sign that sort of it colors their natural sort of natural qualities, right? So the signs sort of influence the planet, and then they're in houses, which are again like places. They're areas of life, areas of human experience. Like the first house is your body, your physique, and everything. The second house is your movable goods. The third house is siblings, etc. And then the planets, as they're arrayed against the signs, have aspect relationships, which is the dialogue. So just to clean that up real quick, planets in signs, in houses, and aspecting each other is the same as an actor in wardrobe on a set having dialogue. So it's just a really neat way to kind of, I butchered it right there, but I think you see what I mean.
Where's the person though? We got all we got the chart, right? We got all the charts. So I guess the person's in the audience watching the play is influenced by the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Well, awesome.
In
for
natal.
the audience, if you have any questions for Jamie, please super chat them so we can separate them. And we will be taking some phone calls later if anybody wants to call in and ask questions too. And I do like the fact that in your book you mention the apocalypse of Adam, since the show is about Gnosticism. Good old Nag Hammadi that talks about Solomon as a magician. And it's a fascinating work because it's one of the few there's no Jesus. It's Sethian, but seems to be a non-Christian, maybe Jewish Gnostic work. It's definitely heavily influenced by Zoroastrianism, and it shows Mithras and all that. And it's fascinating because it's a story of where after 100 years, Adam goes to Seth and says, you know what? Let me tell you the real story of creation. The good guy isn't the God who put us in Eden and all that. But again, it does mention Solomon. And there's also another one, Jamie, I don't know if you read it, called The Testimony of Truth, which also it's in the Nag Hammadi library and has Solomon. He commands these demons to help him build the temple and Jerusalem. Then he puts the demons in jars and vases. And then when the Romans come later, they accidentally open and the demons escape. So of course they're still on Earth.
Pandemonium.
Yeah, pandemonium. Yes, they're still with us. Thanks to the Romans. What have the Romans done for us? They unleashed demons upon our Earth. So So Solomonic tradition is also important to your book. It's something that you tap into.
For sure.
The Solomon Magus tradition, as you call it.
Exactly. Yeah. So just tracing his various activities from the beginning till, at least up until the early modern grimoire period, when things kind of fizzled out. Now, sure, there are people who still write about it here and there, but I'm not sure if it's practiced too much. I mean, here's what I mean. Worldview, right? So before the Enlightenment, the poorly named movement, they should have named it something else, but the Enlightenment was the wholesale disenchantment of the cosmos. Right. That was the product of it, was that everything, the numinous, the qualitative was the noumenal was sort of pulled out of human experience, and what was left was just the quantitative kind of positivistic, what can be measured and weighed, this Cartesian sort of thing.
Right.
And I think that's that's kind of tragic that we don't have myth. We don't have a real living sort of apprehension of that sort of enchanted worldview. Now, that's because we've grown up, as Westerners. I grew up eating TV dinners and watching, Gunsmoke and whatever. And, there's just and going to church, but there was no real room for spirits. There was no real room for angels or that have an objective reality of their own, but I've been over the years trying to cultivate that. And astrology has, in fact, helped me a great deal in that project. Trying to cultivate a more enchanted worldview. I'm not talking about going full on nutty about it, but I will say that I'd like to have that as well. I'd like to have an integrated metaphysical and physical experience. I think metaphysics is, it's an important subject. People have been writing about it for millennia, but it's something that we don't take seriously as a culture, but that's the project of every occultist, I think, unless they're one of the type who psychologize everything, where where the demons of the Ars Goetia are just compartmentalized aspects of my psyche or something. And you know what everybody's done, like Jung and Heller, what they've done to the Gnosticism, right?
Hmm.
Is that they've turned that into a psychological endeavor as well, as opposed to a real, like there are archons and they do have their own agenda, and they're, they're ontologically themselves, not figments of our imagination. So that's what I try to cultivate personally, and certain people I work with, and that seems to be the project of a lot of my friends. And it's more important now than ever, because we are at the opposite end of that pendulum swing, where people try to explain away magic with recourse to like theoretical physics or quantum mechanics or psychology. If you're applying physics to your metaphysics, then that's wrong. It doesn't work. So if you, let me say it another way, if you're thinking that quantum mechanics is going to explain magic, then you're no longer talking about magic, because magic in itself, at its root is hidden causality. There's no causal agent. There's no apparent causal agent, and it's not a quantifiable entity or anything. There's no causal agent. And that's the big thing that was, if you've ever read the Elizabethan World Picture by Tilliard, or the other one is Discarded Image by C.S. Lewis, Discarded Image. These books are about the pre-Enlightenment worldview and how that affected the arts and poetry and culture, but really important read. In fact, Warnock turned me on to the Elizabethan World Picture, and that helps a lot towards, first you got to realize what the problem is, and the problem is that we live in a disenchanted culture, basically. So, and that it was enchanted before the Enlightenment. The regular worldview accounted for a metaphysics.
Yeah, everything was about the numinous, but yeah, I mean, also I like the Hermetic worldview because I mean, as it says, we can psychologize and also believe in the numinous, right? It's the idea we're housed in the universe, but the universe is housed in us. So it can be both. And even Jung said disbelief in the Greek gods was a bad idea because now they've turned into mental diseases. And people think, well, he's talking about a metaphor. He's like, no, turning your back on the gods has messed up our minds, literally.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah.
Indeed, for sure. What do you think, Vince? Are we enchanted or disenchanted?
Oh, well, I mean, metaphysics by definition is outside the material world. So I can see, what you're saying, Jamie, entirely. I mean, it's like totally disregarding the noetic, the place that we can't see, saying that we know everything, we can see everything, we can detect everything, and the universe is just the apparent universe. The only reason we think of the universe is the senses. In a way, our senses combined with our consciousness is kind of equal to the material universe. But where does that come from? Where do the laws of physics come from? Right? All those rules, they're not in the universe. They're not in the material universe. Right. The laws can't be in the material universe. Otherwise, they'd revolve on themselves, right? There'd be infinite recursion. The laws have to be somewhere else. The setup is from outside.
And Miguel, what you were saying about psychologizing, point taken. So there is, like, when I do astrology, I do sometimes hit that psychological level. That is definitely an area that I believe. Well, you're talking about micro macro. That is a microcosmic perspective. The psychological, and the relationship that there is a cosmos in man, and there's a sort of sympathy or a resonance between our inner cosmos and the outer cosmos, and that is that is a good way to look at astrology as well, that I don't think is disenchanted per se. You know.
Oh, I would agree,
Right.
100%. And your book again. I want to bring up the Quinaries. Am I pronouncing that right?
Quinaries or Quinaries,
Yeah,
Quinaries.
because that's something, as you say, nobody has really approached it, right? But it is important.
Well, what they've never done was use that astrologically. So,
Mhm.
and this leads to the great kind of philosophical inference that my book culminates in, and that is astrologizing on the noetic plane,
Mhm.
astrologizing with angels. So what happened was a number of years ago, I was I was I was I was working with the demons of the Ars Goetia, and I found that they had significations, and I knew that that would affect my planets in those, depending on the quinary that they were in. Just like a sign affects the planet, it's the wardrobe on the actor.
Right.
The quinaries, because they have significations as well, and by significations I mean finding lost treasure, being good at the 7 liberal arts, or whatever. There's each of these entities provide something. They could find lost objects, whatever. And so I started looking at my planets and seeing what quinary they're in, just like one would look at what decan their planet is in. That's a
Right.
10-degree arc segment. So I'm talking about 5 degrees. The quinaries go all the way back to Babylonian astrology, these 5-degree arc segments. So it's not something I made up. None of this stuff is my invention. I just saw something that didn't exist in the literature. So, and that something is that we can use astrological methodology to get into the noetic plane, and we do that through the angelic work, right?
Mhm.
And the daimones are sort of intermediate entities as well. So now, because of using the mechanism of astrology to astrologize angelically in the noetic sphere. Now, I'm not sure where that's going to lead, because necessarily the noetic realm is pre-causal, right? So you only get, according to this broadly Platonic picture, you only get causality, the spindle of necessity and
Mhm.
Hymarmene and Ananke. You only get the causal influence beneath the Odoad. So the planets and the fixed stars in the zodiac, that's where you kind of classically, that's where you would get the causal sort of influence in your life, right? And your personality. Again, that daimonic personality that is acquired on the soul's descent through the 7 planetary spheres. And so, yeah, that's kind of the big philosophical inference, is what does it mean to astrologize noetically?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know. I want to know.
Me
What does a
too.
chart look like? You haven't, have you done charts including the angelic, or is this a beginning of an exploration of the such?
Yeah, I've been exploring it, and there's definitely, I found meaning there. I found that, yes, there is daimonic and angelic influence via the quinary that a planet is in. Like, say, if you have your moon is in the 52nd quinary, that just tells you where in the zodiac or on the ecliptic your planet is. And there's necessarily an angel demon pair that are influencing that planetary placement. So I have been thinking about that in charts that I do for people, and just in example charts, and just studying it. And I've come up with some great stuff, and there's really great revelations to be had, and epiphanies that I think, if people do pick this up and run with it, I think we're going to find, a very useful system, a system that I didn't make up, a system that all the pieces were there, but I saw no record of anybody using it to astrologize. Despite the fact that the demons and the angels all have their own qualities that they bestow upon a planet in their quinary. But I've never seen anybody do that. I've talked about it with friends maybe 8-10 years ago, but nobody's ever written it down to my knowledge.
How about Babylonians or Sumerians? Did they have this as part of their systems of astrology?
They had the quinaries, but I don't think they used them for delineation, like delineation of a placement, delineation of a planet, the interpretation of a planet in a quinary. I have never seen that. And that's going all the way back to there's one with this difficult to pronounce name. It's called the Salmeshianaka. I think it's Salmeshni. It's basically a book of images, Salmeshianaka, and it's a Babylonian book, very old, and the quinaries are mentioned in there, but just as more of like an astrological sort of a celestial mechanics thing, a mechanism, a celestial mechanism, not so much for chart delineation. So that's kind of what I'm going for in this book, is a very sort of specialized, yes, it's a specialized project, but I do a lot of the heavy lifting in the book. Like there's an astrological sort of orientation, there's a Kabbalistic orientation. I wrote a very detailed glossary. So any of the specialized words, you can go right to the back of the book and I lay it all out. I mean, it's kind of foolproof, and there's lots of opportunities there, for people to, to do. And on my website, I have one of my blogs is called, I think it's like an introduction to Quinarian astrology. And I have an introduction to demonic astrology, So there's like, if you look on my blog, there's, I give, more about this, but it's all in the book anyway. So if you get the book, you're all good.
Yeah, how did you determine the order of the angels? I mean, like if you look at, among the fixed stars, right, as a reference, and the constellations as a reference, the angels must have, every 5 degrees, they must have another angel, and there's an order of the angels. And how did you determine what that was?
So that's a good question. The order is laid out by 3 verses in Exodus. So it's Exodus, I want to say 14, Exodus 14, verses 19, 20, and 21, I want to say. So Kabbalists noticed that each of those 3 verses, it's during the parting of the Red Sea, when they're describing the parting of the Red Sea sequence.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Exodus 14, 19 to 21, according to your book.
Yeah, exactly. So so what happens is each of those verses consist of 72 letters. So this did not escape the notice of Kabbalists and Reuchlin and Kircher. So they said we'll wrap it around boustrophodonically, which is as the ox plows the field. So you go right to left, and then left to right on the second verse, and then right to left again on the third verse, like an ox would plow. And that's how they got the order of the angels. And then they took those 3 letters, because remember, we turned 72 into 3 columns. So they took those 3 letters and they added either Ia or El at the end to make them angelic, male or female, Ia or El. And,
right.
And then they used those. There were 72, and they wrapped around the ecliptic beginning at 0 Aries. So 0 Aries is just the beginning of the zodiac, right? And
yeah, right.
So with the demons, again, by the time you get to the early modern period, the Goetia, there are 72 demons. people like Thomas Rudd, Dr. Thomas Rudd, an old angel magician, and his buddies, William Lilly was an angel magician as well as, an eminent astrologer, horary astrologer. But basically, they collated the demons of the Ars Goetia with the angels of the Shem HaMephorash, which again is Exodus 14:19 through 21. And I started at 0 Aries. Now, if you go into the Golden Dawn tradition, they start the demons at 0 Leo, I think it is. 0 Leo, because of like the Egyptian New Year, or I forget why Mathers chose that.
They had to be different, I guess.
Yeah, but if you go back to Thomas Rudd, which is the precedent, and Mathers took from Rudd a lot. Like in Mathers, you have day and night demons, per decan, because there's 2 per decan, right? You have a day and night demon. So it's this weird convoluted thing. It's just unnecessarily complicated. But if you go back to Rudd and his ilk, you'll find that 0 Aries is the beginning of the zodiac, as it should be. And the angels and demons both begin there and wrap around the ecliptic, 5 degrees each. A
Awesome.
Quinary.
Well,
Okay, good explanation.
Probably open the phone lines, Vance. And if you guys want to call, Vance will flash the numbers, or if you have any questions, please super chat them. A little housekeeping. Speaking of divination, let me remind you that my wife is doing the Gnostic tarot reading. It's going really well. Check it out at the website. She not only gives you a tarot reading, but with all the Gnostic characters and destinies and all that. But she will work with you for your dreams, your destiny path, and a lot more. And of course, check out the Gnostic Tarot. Reminder too, the virtual Alexandria Academy is only $99 permanently. So if you join, you get about 50 hours of Gnostic education, and I'll be adding a course next week. Very excited about this one. And lastly, speaking of somebody who did astrology, Elvis certainly did astrology. And if you get a chance, very much into astrology. So if you get a chance, check out my Substack. I always put articles there, even beyond the book too. I have just put an article on Elvis and his fascination and connection to ancient Egypt. So, and everything is on the show notes. So, I think that's all the housekeeping I got for now.
Did Elvis hang out with Manly P. Hall?
He tried. He wanted to go down to Hall's lectures, but he would completely disrupt them. So he used to send Priscilla to go and write notes because Elvis couldn't go there. Bring him notes, and he was very excited. He was able one time to reach out to Hall, and Hall gave him a personalized book, and it became like one of his most treasured items. And one time they were going to meet, but that one time in the early 70s, it just fell apart.
Yeah.
So, but
now, did you write The Occult Elvis? Is that you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been looking at that. That's Inner Traditions as well, right?
Yeah, same house. Yeah.
I've got to get that.
Yeah, I think
I'd have to have it signed though. Maybe I'll trade you. Let's trade.
All right. Well, yeah, we could work on it. We could certainly work on it for sure. Yeah, but Elvis was very much into astrology, numerology, all that. Again, we're talking late 50s or 60s occultism. Nothing as advanced, Manly P. Hall and Yogananda and all those Kiero, Book of Numbers, all that stuff. But he was definitely into this.
Well, you had Builders of the Atom, which, if he's in LA, he's Los Feliz is Manly P. Hall, but you go around the corner basically and you're in Highland Park where Paul Foster Case and Annie, whatever, I forget her name, who took Alice or Annie or something, took over the Builders of the Atom. They're a pretty cool organization. They're basically Golden Dawn light. They're Golden Dawn, but without the Enochian and without the Egyptianisms, basically.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Pyrite Dawn.
Yeah.
Fool's Gold.
Yeah. I get it.
Awesome. And moving a little on the side of astrology, your book also deals with talismans, Jamie. Tell the audience about that.
Yeah, so I have a deep interest in talisman or image making, that goes back to the Picatrix. I've made a real thorough study of the Picatrix, as well as De Imaginibus
Hmm.
from Tabit ibn Qura. Tabit ibn Qura, talk about Hermeticism. I think he was, I think he had something to do with the Sabians of Haran. And yeah, and they were the last of the antique Hermetists.
Right.
So unbroken tradition of Hermeticism or Hermetism from antiquity through about, I want to say 8 or 900 or 8 or 900 CE,
Right.
when the Sabians of Haran, who were devout people of the book, but their book was the Corpus Hermeticum, and Hermes was um, their sort of intercessor, basically, to the one God.
Mhm.
And eventually they were snuffed out by Islam as it sort of leveled that whole area. You were talking Eastern Turkey.
Mhm.
So that was the end of the unbroken chain of Hermetism that you get through the PGM and the Picatrix and all the way up to that period. Then you have the fall of then they're out, and then you have the fall of the Byzantine, and then those texts make it over to Marsilio Ficino in the Court de Medici, and
Mhm.
he translates them, and there you have Hermeticism as opposed to just Hermetism, or at least that's the way I look at it. Like Renaissance Hermeticism is they're talking about Hermetism, but Hermetism itself is like that first iteration that was unbroken for 1,000 years.
No, makes sense. So that's going back to talismans. This is
Oh
your
yeah, my bad. So yeah, talisman making or image making, it involves a type of magic called telestiki, which is used mostly or also in statue animation. So the opening of the mouth and
right.
there's all of these telestic, I guess, operations, right? So it's iamblican in a lot of ways and proclean in that you're using synthemata, which are tokens in the sublunary world, like gold and roosters and lions and St. John's wort. These are all solar synthemata or synthemata in the sublunary sphere. So you're stacking these, you're making sort of a synthematic stack of these things that draw down the sun. So you're drawing down
Mhm.
the solar effluence or influence, and it is you're capturing that in a talisman, but not energetically. This is not energy and matter. This is not a battery, or at least I don't think of them as a battery. I
Right.
think of them as sort of an icon, an image. How we think. I'm Greek Orthodox, so we think of icons as windows, essentially,
Right.
or a way to an exchange. It's a communication with whatever entity. So talismans, I make them pretty regularly, and the way I do it is I look for a good election. Like I just did one last Thursday. Last Thursday, I made a Jupiter talisman, and it was on Thursday, the day of Thor, Jupiter, right? Zeus. It was on a Thursday. Jupiter was in Cancer, which is his exaltation. Jupiter was in his term or bound. He was in this little segment that he has power there and dignity. And he was also in the 11th house, the joy of Jupiter, and other things. It was just a great election for Jupiter during this one like 15-minute period, you know. And previously throughout maybe the Thursday before I at a Jupiterian hour, I started the pre-construction of the talismans, and then I did my full-on consecration on that Thursday with the good election. And you do that by burning the appropriate suffumigation and passing the talisman through the smoke.
Mhm.
Um, And I lit a blue candle. I had my image of Jupiter, which is, or Zeus. I have an image with a blue frame around it because my color correspondences associate Jupiter with blue. And I burned the appropriate fumigation. I did the ritual. I recited the hymn to Jupiter from the Hygromantia. It's a Solomonic, medieval Solomonic work, Hygromantia, and there's a great sort of invocation of Jupiter, or hymn to Jupiter. But a lot of times I use the Orphic hymns, or I'll use the Picatrix. Actually has a nice hymn that you could recite as well. And then I listened to music in the Lydian mode. The Lydian musical mode corresponds to Jupiter. And once you do all that and ritualize it, you're providing an environment, a vessel for this, through this, I said it just earlier, telestiki. This telestiki, you're drawing down all these effluences and qualities and influence of not energy into this talisman. So I do a lot of that.
Very fascinating.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I lay out in the book Quinarian talisman making. So you can make talismans that have the sigil of the angel and the seal of the demon, one on each side, because that's how the angel magicians used to wear their lamens. So Rudd would have the outward lamen would have the seal of the demon that he's conjuring goetically, but inside of that would be the sigil of the corresponding angel, which insulates him from chaotic demonic influence. So they used it very purposefully. And I explain that so people are safe, because I objectively believe in these entities, right? So I'm not going to I want it to be as safe as possible personally. And I gave a lot of information on how to, because some people, they get mixed up in the occult and they literally do mess themselves up, they get blown up. But so you got to be careful about that.
For sure, for sure. And are you practicing Greek Orthodox?
Yeah.
So you're an ortho bro, as they call them on the internet today.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Neoplatonism in Orthodoxy.
And a lot of the Greek emperors embrace Hermes Trismegistos during the Byzantine Empire. He was a big guy. I mean,
sure.
Hermeticism. You can see Hermeticism and Neoplatonism in the Greek Orthodox tradition. It's
for sure.
It's right there. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
the early church. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early church, even the Roman church had influences of Platonism.
Right. Yeah. It was my good fortune because I married my wife 20 years ago or so, and she's from a big Greek family. And I grew up Catholic, but I was kind of derelict at the time, theologically. And I married my wife and I got chrismated into the Orthodox Church. And that was just a pleasant piece of fortune for me because I ended up actually theologically investing myself in that. And
but your priest doesn't mind all this heresy. I mean, my wife is Catholic, and I go to mass sometimes. And of course, I keep my mouth shut.
Me too.
I'm not gonna tell the priest shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they say there's an Orthodoxy page where it's like, is Freemasonry compatible with Orthodoxy? They say no, it's incompatible with all Christianity, and for whatever reasons. In fact, it might be the Masonic Gnostic heresy. Do you know that there's something there with the Johannine sort of connection, but also with man
Albert
through
Pike and all that. Yeah.
Sure, and man through his good works can make his, his ashlar. He's perfecting his ashlar, and through his actions, he's entering the house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens, as a living stone. And plus, the great architect of the universe doesn't mean the creator of the universe. It doesn't mean God per se, but it could mean a demiurge.
Yeah, just a fashioner, a guy who organizes the foreman of this wonderful universe. Well-built universe. Well, as we're getting to the end, we're about an hour. If there's no phone calls, Vance, do you have any last questions for Jamie?
Well, let's see. I still don't know. I'm still not clear on the planets and the daemons. I'm not sure. Maybe you could try to explain that to me again. How the planets?
Sure.
Um,
So there's in the Ogdoad, there's stellar demons, like the demons of the decans, and then once you get to the planetary spheres, they're called spirits. So if you look in
yeah.
uh, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's second book of occult philosophy, he gives the seal or sigil for the spirit of each of the planets. So the planets have an archangel, but they also have a demon that
Oh,
has been called a spirit, which is synonymous. Demon and
but
spirit
they're
are the same.
different. They're different than the spirits are different than the angels or the demons.
No, the spirits are the demons, and the archangels are different than the spirit demons.
Oh, all right. And so the planets. See, I'm
And they're
sorry.
both all right. So you got a planet, and a planet has several qualities. It has its mythological quality, like Venus is
Yeah.
Aphrodite, etc. It has an archangel like Zadkiel or Raphael,
Oh,
and then it has a spirit, and that's the daimon or the
Damon.
demon of that planet, and it has sort of an intelligence as well. That's another entity associated
So
with
it's a
each planet.
synthesis. The planet is a synthesis of all these different things.
Exactly.
I get
Yeah.
it now. Okay.
And if you're into the Kabbalistic way of looking at it, Hokmah is the sphere of the fixed stars in the zodiac. And then you go down from Saturn, which is Bina, to Hesed, to Geburah and Tiferet, and all the way down to Malkuth, which is the sublunary sphere. So that tree of life, that Gra tree, not the Gra tree, but the Kircher tree, is just a Ptolemaic cosmos. It's a cosmological model, and all the planets are there. And so yeah, you can collate all of this stuff together. There's lots of, and the medieval scholars and these polymaths, they love to neaten things up and tidy things up and make things systematically coherent and correspondences. And I think we have them to thank largely for these great systems in Western esotericism.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Indeed.
Thanks.
No questions though from the no phone calls. I'd love to take a phone call. I've never
No phone calls. So I don't know what happened. They're shy. Our group is a little bit shy on the phone.
Yeah,
but they've been enjoying your stuff in the chat and batting around other ideas. So
I'd like to
very warmly received.
I'd like to see that, and I hope that I'm doing a good job explaining this stuff, because it is necessarily like abstruse material. It's hard to talk about. It's very specialized, but suffice it to say, I've really went to great pains in my book to make this accessible. Again, there's a glossary, there's orientations in basically every chapter. I do the whole backstory, and I don't make, and then there's a reference section, so it's anybody can get into this. You don't need to be.
I read it, and I don't know much about astrology. I'm an I Ching kind of guy, and my wife does tarot for me. Astrology is never care. I guess I'm a true Gnostic. I hate the stars, but they're the enemy no matter what, instinctively. But but I found it interesting, and also I'm not into Goetia or angelic mafia. I was like, oh, this is really, again, you include the Gnostics, the apocalypse of Adam, and you put it together in a very comprehensive but easy to approach way. So yeah,
I try.
Yeah. And as for me, I can visualize exactly what you're saying. And I was afraid, like Miguel can tell you, when I came on the show, before the show, I was telling Miguel, oh my God, I looked at the notes for this show, and I'm this is way beyond me, But when you explained it, though, now I see how it all fits together.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do a chart like that, but
sure. Well,
I see the principles.
A reasonably proficient astrologer should be able to immediately start working with a system like this. I mean, if you already have your astrology together, and if you don't, again, I did basically an orientation on it, so you kind of get real astrology, not hippie new age stuff, not 20th century,
And
not
your
like
hat.
not post theosophical modern astrology, but real, pre-enlightenment astrology. That is to say, Hellenistic, the first iteration of Western tropical astrology, medieval Perso-Arabic, like Ben Dyke's translations of all that great Perso-Arabic astrology, and Renaissance astrology, Marsilio Ficino, etc., all the way up until the Elizabethan period with William Lilly. So,
Awesome.
Oh gosh,
Awesome.
there's Vedic astrology too.
well, they're sidereal. That's sidereal astrology, and that's not what we
Ah.
use. We don't use that in the West.
No.
Well, here is Jamie's website. It's also on the show notes, and his book, of course, Inner Traditions. The great people there, and you can find it at your usual suspects where you want to buy it. Yeah, I got here. There's my Elvis Substack, just in case if you want to check out latest on Elvis, and I go stuff even beyond my book, other research that I found out about him. So, and eventually I'm going to start blogging about Bowie as my Bowie book gets ready to come out too.
Are you going to do an Iggy Pop? You're going to do an Iggy Pop book?
No, I'm doing a David Bowie bio. But of course, there's a lot of Iggy Pop, and Bowie was very much into astrology, big time.
Oh,
astrology.
I did not know
that. Tarot, yeah. Huh. So, yeah, he and Elvis were like walking mystics.
Oh, wow.
Maybe Peter Gabriel's next.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard anything about Peter Gabriel. So, but I love his music.
What's his name? Helms, Leon Helms. Was that his name? He was George Jefferson on the television show. I forget the name of the show, but was it the Jeffersons?
The Jeffersons.
Yeah. But Leon Helms was an occultist.
Like I did not know that. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I think he was Builders of the Atom or something like that.
He
was like a GD type of guy.
Wow, I didn't know that. So awesome. Well, we are at the end of the show. This has been a fun conversation. Yes, if you're into magic, astrology, this book will definitely help you and give you new vistas.
Yeah.
And we need that more than ever in this collapsing culture. But as I always say, and I will quote Julian of Norwich, till the cows come home, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. But we are at the end. Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah, I don't know. Blue Oyster Cult always had different lyricists. Michael Moorcock and, Patti Smith. So they had all these different lyricists that wrote, for some reason, it's like, oh, this is our chance to write in secret about the occult and UFO and our beliefs. So I think the band members were mostly just mainstream Reformed Jews, but all these other people are writing all this occult stuff. And their producer, I got to have Cowbell of fame. I think his name was Perlman. He was also into some weird, stuff. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of it. I'm getting way ahead of it. Astrox Foundation just got me going. But yeah, Vance, thanks for keeping us company on the show.
For sure.
Oh, it's fascinating. I love to hear about this kind of stuff. And thanks, Jamie. It was good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Miguel, Moondog, Vance. Thanks so much for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I can't wait to. I want to go on and look at the chat.
You will be able to see it after the show. We'll have
cool.
Everything will be there. So
cool. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks, Jamie. Really appreciate you being here for the work you did and for your time. And good luck with everything.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you, and everybody else. Take